Hello friends, thank you for attending my presentation. So last time we created a to-do application. We created a login page and when the user enters the correct username and password, he will be taken to the welcome page and with his name displayed on the welcome page. And if the user enters incorrect username and password, then he would see an error message. And once again, if the user enters the right username and password, then he will be taken to the welcome page. So this is what we did until last presentation. So today we will try to create a basic to-do list. So in order to create a basic to-do list, to-do is the list of items that we are planning to do. So we want to create that list, and in order to do that, first of all, we need to create a list to-dos component. And we can do it by typing down ng, G stands for generate, C stands for component, and then I'm using some capital letters and some small letters. Because these are two different words, I just used capital letter at the beginning of each word. And then I should press enter. So then the list to-dos component gets created. And this component has already been created because I already did this before. So when I did that, the list to-dos component got created. If you can see here, there is a hyphen in the middle of the two words, list and to-dos. There is a hyphen. This is probably because I entered a capital T when I tried to create the component. So when I created the component, 4 files got generated, just the way we know they get generated. So we see the 4 files. And if we see the HTML, it just displays to-do works. So now we have the component, but we want to define a path for this component. And in order to do that, we should go to app routing module.ts. And in here, we need to include the path for to-dos. So we want to give it the path TODOS. And then when the user accesses this path, he should see list to-dos component, which means he should see this list to-dos component.html. So I am saving it. And now if I go to my application, and if I type /to-dos and press enter, then I can see this to-do works text, which is from list to-dos component.html. So the path and the component, they basically work. Now we want to display the actual to-dos in the list to-dos component HTML page. So in order to do that, we need to create a JavaScript object just like this. So this is a JavaScript list object. So this to-dos is a list that contains objects of the same type. And this is the syntax of each of the objects. ID, because I want to give a ID to my to-do item. And then there is a description. So these are 4 different objects contained in a list. So this is the JavaScript syntax. So I need to create a JavaScript object like this, and I need to do it in list to-dos component.ts because that is the code file for our list to-dos component. So I created a to-dos JavaScript object in the .ts file. Now I need to display these to-dos in the list to-dos component.html. So in order to do that, I'm just removing this and so this should be the code in the HTML file. So this is the basic heading. And then I'm creating a table with a border. So I'm creating a table, and within the table, I'm creating a header. So this is the header, and the headings are ID and description for the table. And then these are the actual rows. And I should be displaying 4 rows because I have 4 to-do items. So in order to display these 4 items, in order to display those 4 items, we need to use the for loop. So this is the star ng for, this is the for loop for Angular. This is the syntax. Star ng for is equal to, this let is the keyword, this off is the keyword. Both these are keywords. And we are saying for each item in to-dos list. So that each item in to-dos list, we are naming it as to-do. So for each to-do of to-dos list, we are trying to display the ID and the description using the interpolation. So this is the for loop syntax of Angular, and this is the same as for each loop in Java. So we have a for each loop in Java. We don't have a each keyword, but we still call it a for each loop in Java. So this is the same as that one. So by using this for loop, we are displaying all the 4 items in here. They need not be just 4 items, they can be 5 items, they can be any number of items, but they all will still be displayed. So once we write this, we should be able to see all of these to-dos on the to-dos path. So it automatically updated everything in here for us. So I see the header, ID and description, and I see all the 5 items, 5 to-do items here. So if I remove this and save it, this one gets automatically updated with just 4 items. So we did that part. We are able to display the to-do items. The next step is to be able to navigate from welcome component to to-dos component. So right now we are accessing this to-dos component directly using the path. But now we want to be able to access it from the welcome page. And in order to do that, let us go to the welcome h.component.html page. And here we are seeing the name and the welcome message. And here is the command that we should include in welcome component.html file. So we are saying click here to manage to-do list. And we are giving a link to this click here text. And we usually give the hyperlink, enclose the hyperlink in a tag of HTML. And normally we say a href is equal to something. But in Angular, it's not href. Instead of href, it's router link equal to, and then we should give the path enclosed in double quotes. So once we give this code and save it, when the user clicks this click here link, he will be taken to the to-dos component. So let's see. So the Angular automatically updated the page for us with this extra text. And if I click here, I will be taken to the to-dos page and I see all my to-do items. So that is how the user can navigate from welcome page, welcome component to to-dos component. So the JavaScript object that we created in this list to-dos component.ts, this is not really the right way of doing it. Instead, we have an alternate, better way of doing it. And that would be to create a to-do class first. So I'm creating a to-do class so it can hold all my to-do items. And in the to-do class, I'm creating a constructor. And within the constructor, I'm passing 4 fields. These are the fields now I want my to-do item to have. I want to have a to-do ID, to-do description. I want to know if that to-do item has been done or not. And I want to give the target date for each of my to-do items. So these are the 4 fields I want my to-do item to have. So I need 4 instance variables for this class. And instead of defining the instance variables within the class, I'm instead defining them, passing them as parameters to the constructor. And when I do that, these 4 fields automatically get defined within the class as well. So I don't need to define these separately. When I define them, when I pass them to the constructor, they will automatically be defined as instance variables of this class. So then that's all I need to do. I'm done defining the class. And because I want this class to be accessible from other files as well, I'm giving the word export to this class. So now I'm done defining the to-do class. And now I can define the to-dos list here in the other class. So this is the one class we have by default. And here is another class we defined just now. We know that one file, one .ts file can contain more than one class. So we have 2 classes in the same file. So from here, we are defining the to-dos list the same as we did before, but instead of instead of defining each object like this, we are creating an object of to-do class type, and we are passing the default values. That means we are actually executing the constructor for each to-do item. So this will leave us with 4 to-do objects with these values that we are giving here. So it's more or like the same as this, but this is the better way of defining the to-do objects in this to-dos list. So
Where
now
to-do is called?
say it again.
Where to-do is called? How it is going to call this block, to-dos block?
We are calling it from list to-dos component.html.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking, or you're asking something else?
No, I'm thinking like, say, normally if you create the class, so this should be somewhere it might be, it should be in the constructor, or it should be in the ng or init, but it is in different block, right? To-dos equal to array list of objects.
This is basically an instance variable for this class.
Yes.
So to-dos is a instance variable of this class, and to-dos is a list type, and this list is defining objects of to-do type. And because this class is in the same file as this, I don't need to do any imports or anything like that. As soon as you say new to-do,
Okay.
it means you're calling the constructor.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So now that we are done defining the to-do objects in a list, we can access these to-do objects from list to-dos.component.html. Earlier, we were using only 2 fields for to-do item. Now we are using 4 fields: ID, description, done, and target date. So we need to include those in our .html file. So I included 2 more headings. And now I'm including 2 more values. So everything else just remains the same. It is still star ng4 equal to let and off or keywords. We are still trying to access the to-dos list, which comes from this to-dos. And each of the objects, we are naming it as to-do here. We can name it as anything different. We can name it A, B, or anything. But we are naming it as to-do, and that name we are using here in order to extract the field names, field values, and we are doing it by interpolation. So ID, description, done, and target date. And it should display as many items as they are here. So if we see this page, so we got the 3 items here, exactly the way we have defined them in the .ts file. So now if I include the 4th item.
I have a question.
Yes.
So there is a to-do class you defined, and this to-dos array is in list components class, right?
To-dos array is in list component class. Yes, to-dos itself is a list.
Correct. So how does it able to access this to-dos array directly without referring the list to do components class?
We are accessing it from the HTML page. So this list to-dos component.html, it has the capability to access any variable from here using interpolation. So, you know, it can access this page, list to-dos component.html, this page. It has the power to access any variable over here. So if I define,
No, it's like this. Can you go up the component class list to do component class? Up little bit up. See here the app list to do is the selector. So whenever you see this tag, the to-dos.component.html going to render, right? The one who asked the question.
HTML, it's only just referring to do's there, correct?
Yeah,
yes,
this.
So
HTML is referring to to-dos. This is nothing but the to-dos here. Is this variable?
so basically list component. Okay. Okay. That is a part of the component, right? So
Yes,
okay,
yes.
the scope is there.
Yeah.
But this
So,
HTML file can access other elements or variables from outside of this component.
no, I mean, so far I haven't learned anything like that, but all I know is this HTML, it has the power to access any variables that are defined in this class, basically.
So basically because of interpolation, I guess.
Yes.
The
So
other way,
the
other way is the ng model, right? If you want to refer directly the variable, then ng model and then that variable name.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what do you mean by interpolation? Can you go in a little bit detail?
Yes. I mean, let me look at the welcome component and let me open welcome component.ts. So if you see in welcome component.html, you see this name here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually a variable from welcome component.ts.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is the variable in welcome component class, and any variable in welcome component class can be accessed by welcome component.html by enclosing the variable name in double curly braces. That is called interpolation. It's just that you're taking the variable name and you're putting it in double curly braces. That's all you're doing, and you just get the value from the code.
Okay.
Displayed on the web page.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Please
Okay.
continue. Yeah.
So now if we see this to-dos path has been updated by all the values that we gave to the objects here. If I change it to 55 and save it, we can see that update here. So we achieved that part. So we looked at how ng4 works and what its syntax is. And now let's look at the Angular pipe. So if we see here the target date, it is being displayed as very long date. So we don't want such a long date. Instead, we want short date. We can achieve that by using Angular pipe. And in order to do that, we need to use a pipe symbol. And then we can just say date. So date is a format, short format. It's a keyword that indicates the short format. And as soon as I save it, we can now see that the date is short. So basically the pipe symbol, angular pipe symbol, it converts the field in one format to another format. So if we see here, J is capital and U and N are small. And if we want all these letters to be capital letters, then we can do it by including another pipe and by saying uppercase. Then we see that all the letters are uppercase letters. And if we want to change all the letters to lowercase, then we can say pipe lowercase. Then we could see that everything is in lowercase now. So that is how we use angular pipe symbol. So now we need to talk about Angular modules. And an Angular module is different from a JavaScript module, and it's actually confusing. So what is a JavaScript module in the first place? We already discussed about it before. What we know is that any .ts file or any .js file is one JavaScript module. So the .ts file, it can contain one or more classes. It can be any long, but this entire file is considered as one JavaScript module. So it's like one file is one JavaScript module and one JavaScript module is one file. So that is the JavaScript module. But Angular module is entirely different. So let's learn what Angular module is. So they're saying that Angular framework itself consists of lot of Angular modules. Angular framework is built with lot of Angular modules, and those modules are called inbuilt Angular modules. So that is one thing. Another thing is that an Angular application, that means the application that we created, the to-do application, this code that we are writing here, this application also contains one or more Angular modules, and these modules are called custom Angular modules. So basically the Angular framework is a group of Angular modules which are called inbuilt modules. And an Angular application is also a group of Angular modules which are called custom Angular modules. So now let us look at one Angular module that we've been working with. And that is app module. So this app module is an Angular module. And if you see here, so this is the name of the class, and app module is the name of the class. And we are making this class an Angular module by including this decorator, @ng module. We usually call it an annotation, but in Angular, they call it a decorator. So this class basically became an Angular module because we included @ng module decorator. And this is all part of that decorator, the properties within the decorator. So let me go back here. So they're saying that an Angular module can contain multiple components. That means multiple .component.ts files. So basically, whatever components we've been creating until now we created a login component, a welcome component, an error component, and a list to-dos component. Whatever components we created until now, they all are part of this app module. So that means an Angular module can contain one or more components. An Angular module related information can be found in .module.ts file. Yes, because this app module is saved in app.module.ts. So an Angular module related information can be found in .module.ts files. An Angular module can contain multiple components and multiple directives. So we know what a component is, we have been creating them, but we don't know what a directive is. And they are saying that ngIf and ngFor, etc. are called directives. And they are saying that we can create directives the same way as we've been creating components. So basically, the component, we're making a class as a component by including @component decorator. Similarly, if we want to create a directive, we need to put @directive decorator on the top of the class. So the way we are creating components, we can also create the directives. So what they're saying is an Angular module can contain multiple components and it can also contain multiple directives. So now if we look at app.module.ts, so this is app.module.ts, and they're saying that these import statements that we have here, they are here because we want to use the corresponding keywords in our application. So when we try to include welcome component keyword, we had to import welcome component. So that is the reason why we have all the imports here. And in here, in the declarations of the Angular module, we are including all the components and probably all the directives, if we had them. And then if we see here, these are the imports and these are also Angular modules, but these are built-in Angular modules. That means they come with the Angular framework. And we had to include them here because we want to use the features of these Angular modules in our application. Say, for example, when we try to use ng model in the banana brackets, we had to import this forms module, because without importing this inbuilt forms module of Angular framework, we wouldn't have been able to use ng model in our application. So we are using these inbuilt Angular modules in our application. And then if we see here, this is bootstrapping app component. So app module has 5 components, and among these 5 components, what we are saying here is start executing by starting app component. So we are starting the execution by app component. So that's what this statement means. So that is about the app module, which is the Angular module, which is the custom Angular module that is created as part of our application.
Can you go back 1 second? Yeah. In this slide, we have app routing module on the 4th line. And ng module,
Yes,
that is not required in the decorator. ng module and ng module is not there.
we have ng module import here.
So it doesn't need to be there in both places, like browser module, app router module, and forms module. It is in the 3rd box also, right?
No, this is see that declaration means you have to declare all the components. Imports means all the modules like browser module. Browser module is kind of like some application works in Firefox, some application doesn't work in the like Chrome, all those things. So Angular has provided a module, browser module, which supports across all the browsers. So that is called browser module. App routing model is kind of like if you want to have routing in your application, then you have to use that model. Otherwise, you can delete that. So it's kind of all the modules, whatever you want, you can import. Otherwise, you can delete. Here you have the providers. Provider is nothing but like services if you want to have that kind of. So ng module, app module is that.
My question is line number 2, ng module is there, right? Why it is not listed in the imports below in the 3rd box?
Because we are using the keyword ng module, and in order to use that keyword ng module here @ ng module, if we want to use this ng module keyword here, we need to import this thing. That is why we imported it, and that's why it's not listed here, because the purpose of this is to enable this keyword.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, actually, even I thought about it.
But as such, ng module, that is enough. In order to use that, just import that ng module, and we can use that decorator there. That's it. Only for that purpose, we are importing ng module, and it need not be there in the 3rd box.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So that is about the Angular modules, which are different from JavaScript modules. Now we will talk about how to bootstrap the Angular application. So they're saying that Angular application starts by executing main.ts and index.html in parallel. So if we go to main.ts, so the Angular application starts by executing main.ts and index.html both in parallel. So if we go to main.ts, here we can see that the application is being started by running the app module. So if we go to app module.ts, here the app module is starting by kicking off app component. So main.ts is calling app module, and app module is calling app component. And if we go to app component.ts, it has the selector as app root. And if we go to index.html, index.html is also calling the app root tag, which is nothing but app component. So app component kicks off from here as well as from here. So then we get to see the contents of app component, which is nothing but this router outlet. So here we are enabling the routing, and the routing is enabled by app routing.module.ts. So here we are giving the paths, we are giving the default paths, default path and the other paths. So this router outlet, it will act according to the paths that have been mentioned here. And that's how the application bootstraps. So it is both main.ts and index.html starting to execute in parallel, and both are basically kicking off the app component, which in turn kicks off the routing. So that is how the application bootstraps. And now,
Bindu, if you don't mind, can you go over one more time that how the application kicks,
okay,
where it looks at? Sorry. Yeah.
so yeah, so the application starts by executing index.html and main.ts in parallel. So both of these start executing in parallel. And if we start with main.ts bootstraps by calling app.module. That means main.ts calls app module. So if we go to app module, it in turn calls app component because it is bootstrapping by app component. And if we go to app component.ts, its selector is app root. And this app root is actually being called from index.html as well. So it's as if index.html is also calling the app component, and the main.ts also calls app module, which in turn calls app component. So it's as if both of them are calling the app component. So both of them are calling the app component. Now the app component should start. So when it starts, it actually includes this router outlet tag, which is basically referring to the paths listed in app routing.module.ts. So when the app component starts, the application calls the default path that is listed in here or any other paths that are mentioned here.
So in this case, on the first time, it goes the default one, line number 10, right?
Yes. I mean, if I say localhost 4200, so it goes,
The login component.
Executes login component.
Yeah.
If I say /login, it will still execute login component. If I say to-dos, it will call to-do component. Anything else, it will just display the error.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically both main.ts and index.ts, they start executing this, whereas this one in turn, it refers to app routing module and executes the component corresponding to the path given by the user.
In the
Okay.
app,
If I
can you go to app component TS? There is a router, right? This should be a selector of something, right?
That actually, when I learned it, it's really not doesn't seem to be selector of anything. It just refers to the.
No, it's a see, for router configuration there are steps. So among those steps, one step is you have to declare this app outlet in the HTML. That's how it kick off. Otherwise, it won't.
Earlier, you used to have app. Go to that one. Before router, you used to have the app login. So this app login is a selector or
App login is custom one. That is different. Router outlet is the provided by the Angular provider, Angular one, and he has said like, hey, if you want to use routing, these are the steps. So among those 3 steps, this step has to be there. Then only routing will be enabled. If you delete this router outlet, it is provided by the Angular. It's not like custom or application thing. So if you remove this one, it won't work. Routing won't work.
Selector is for only for the custom components.
app login is custom, what we have done, what she has developed everything. But router outlet is the Angular provided one. See, if he has provided some steps, like if you want to use the Angular routing, you have to follow steps. So among those steps, this is the second or might be third step. So you have to write this. There is nothing like you cannot escape. This is the contract between user application and the Angular one. So if you declare this one, then only I will do the routing. Otherwise, I won't. That's kind of understand. App login, all those are like custom, our user defined tags. But this
So-
tag is provided by the Angular.
One question on that same thing. So without using router, I can still make my application work, right? Having
No,
defining.
routing won't work. Routing won't work. The what she has developed like a slash, if you click this one, it goes to welcome. All these paths, it won't work.
It won't work, but still we can make it work by using the selector, right? In between
Yeah,
components.
selector you can do. That's what I'm saying. If you want to use routing, you have to follow some steps.
Yeah.
If you
So
do not have the routing, then just use the tag and do whatever the component declare and render the HTML.
So Angular is giving this feature, this module you may call, and to navigate between the components if you follow those steps.
Yes.
Right. And we'll
Yes.
have it one place will have all this configuration.
Yes, one place you have all this configuration, and your second step you have to declare that router outlet what she has declared in the HTML, right? That is compulsory. Without that, it won't work.
Okay. So before launching, before the first page comes itself, we were letting the router to take over and do navigation based on our configuration.
Yes. That's how it works.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for explaining. So now we want to install Bootstrap into our Angular application, and because we want to make our pages more beautiful. So the way we install Bootstrap is by searching for this. We can go to this link and CSS, and in here we need this bootstrap.min.cs file, and we can see the full version of file. I don't know, something wrong, but we can see the full version of the file here, and we need to copy this path, and we should go to styles.css file. So this is our styles file for the entire Angular application, and we need to paste that path in here within the URL preceded by @import. So this is the CSS syntax. So we are basically importing this bootstrap.min.css from this URL. And as soon as I save this, so basically this file, it reflects the styling of the entire application at a global level. So as soon as I save this, the look of the application just changes. The buttons and everything just changes. So that is how we include the Bootstrap into our application. Now our goal is to display the menu on the top of every page of our application, and to display the footer at the bottom of every page of our application. And in order to do that,
Can I ask one? Sorry to interrupt. Can you show me again, like how you went for CSS, Bootstrap CSS on the Explorer?
it's you just search for unpackage Bootstrap 4, and you select the link and you click on CSS. So basically you should get to bootstrap.min.css of the latest version. So So once you have that URL, just copy that URL and go to styles.css file and include it within this syntax. This syntax is CSS syntax. So just include the URL here. And as soon as you save it, the Bootstrap is downloaded into our application. And the fonts and styles, they change. So now we want to include a menu and footer. And the way we do it is here. So I'm saying menu of application in the app component.html. And in here, I'm saying footer of the application. So let's see how it works. So we got the menu and footer in login page, and we also see it in the welcome page, and we also see it in the to-dos page. And we also see it when there is an error. And if we go to some path that is not defined, we see the error, but we still see the menu and footer. So it is working well. So now in order to create the menu and footer, we need to create a menu component and a footer component. And we can do it very easily by typing in ng, G for generate, C for component, menu. So I did not create this component, so I'm creating it now. So meanwhile, I want to go here and remove this because I will be including menu component and footer component here instead of this text. So I'm done creating the menu component. Now I'm trying to create the footer component. So the 4 files got created for the menu component. And if I go to menu component.html, here it says menu works. So I will replace it with menu of the to-do application and then save it. So if I go here, the selector for menu component is app menu. So I'm copying it and I'm calling it from here. So I'm including this menu component here. And I'm also done creating the footer component. So I would be including the footer component here and in footer component.html, I would say footer of to-do application and save it. So now that I included menu and footer here in app component.html, it should work. So if I go to the home page, I could see menu and I could see footer. If I log in, I could see menu and footer on the welcome page and also on the to-do page and also on the error page. Okay, that's all for today. I will continue it on Monday at 8:30 p.m. Anyone?
Okay, Bindu, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye, everybody.
You too. Bye.
Meet
Thank
you
you.
again on Monday. Bye.
Bye. Bye.